Hey, welcome back to my channel and to the 49 Willys pickup project. If you've been following this along, you know I've been working on the box for a while. And in this episode, we're going to do a tailgate. Now, I built this box out of the best parts of 3 boxes. And what they have in common, besides just all being in crappy shape, is that not a one of them had a tailgate. So I'm going to remedy that. So this is my plan. I'm going to build a tailgate. I mean, how tough could it be? As I said, I have 3 boxes, and if you look way down at that end, I used the end of one and some spare metal to put that end back together. But I still had 2 other ends that were in bad shape. But I think I can use a combination of these to make a tailgate. Before we get started on the tailgate, I'll fill you in on just a couple of things that I've been working on this box since my last video. In the last video, we got that end on, and we got all the stake pockets finished up. And so in between, what I've been doing is patching in holes. There was a lot of holes drilled in here, so I've just been welding in patches there. Same on this side. This side right here had a bunch of gouges. They were about this long and kind of squared off, so it almost looks like maybe a farm implement got set in here and then slid over and punched some holes in here. But I've welded those up and done a little bit of straightening. The other thing I started, this is a big job too, is wire wheeling the bed. So I've got about a third of it done. So I'm going to wire wheel this. I may try to take some of the waves out of this. I don't know for sure. If it's easy to do, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'll just leave it. It's not a big deal. But I want to get this thing all wired wheeled, get some rust converter on there, and then at this stage, just get it primed so that it doesn't rust while I'm doing the rest of my work. All right, so here's the plan. The tailgate usually has a rolled edge both on the bottom and on the top. Not that different from that edge down there. In fact, the size is the same. So let me show you what I'm thinking I'm going to do. Let's see. We'll do it like this. This end slides into a hinge, just a pin, and there's another pin on this side. Let's go ahead and put that on so we can see what it looks like. Do a little trimming, but this is the beginnings of the tailgate. Now what we're going to do is take that top half and put it right in there. We'll cut down the middle, get these 2 welded together. All right, so imagine this is the tailgate, and we got the other half right up here somewhere. Now we need to strengthen it right on these sides because they used to have, if you look at a factory one, they've got a kind of a square channel that runs down there. So I've got a piece of just some steel square tube, and what I'll do is fit this in here, cut it to length. We'll get this squared in. That'll give me a good solid edge. I can weld on the bottom and on the top as well as here. And then the other thing we're going to need is this little bracket sticking out so that we've got the hook that holds that tailgate up. And I saved some of these brackets from, I've got, like I said, I've got, 2 more boxes that I took parts from. So what we'll do is cut this apart, but we'll basically just make a bracket that can go on the inside here. Let's start by working on both of these box ends. I'm going to shave off this little flange because I'm not going to need those and they're kind of in the way. Then what I want to do is flatten these out. They're both got a little bit of a bow to them, but I'll try to get them flattened out and then, weld up this crack. And this is the bottom one. This has got a little bit of damage here. I'll at least weld this up. There's probably not much I'm going to do with this. We'll call that character. But we got to get these cleaned up so that we can prep them to weld. All right, step 1 is done. Flatten this thing out as best I can. Weld it up the cracks that we had in each of these areas. And then I took the other piece and I cut that down to a little longer than it needs to be. I'm just going to go in here. Just about like this. Just adjust it to the perfect height. And that's a start. That's kind of what the tailgate is going to look like. So I'm going to get this welded together. Then we'll start working on these supports. It's the next day and work continues. I got another third of the bed wire wheeled. That's just dust from this. I've got some holes in here. I think most of them, a bed liner is just going to seal up. I've got one here that is a little bigger than I'd like, so I think I might have to do something about that, but we'll do that a little bit later. So back to the tailgate. I've got the tailgate where I want it positioned up, and I've clamped it together, and now I need to make a cut all the way through here. So I'm just going to basically cut this along a line, go through both layers, and then I'll have something that is matched up perfectly that I can weld up. So I intentionally left just a little bit on each end and a spot in the middle so it doesn't just fall apart. And now what I'm going to do is separate these two pieces and finish the cut. I can just finish these cuts. So got the excess cut off here, and I put it back together. Now I've got a perfectly matching seam that I can butt weld. And what I'm using right here, just for now, is some of these El Cheapo Harbor Freight clamps. The thing I like about these is they hold them exactly the same distance as the width of that cutting wheel. So this is in exactly the position it was and needs to be. So this is just mock-up so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take it apart now. I'm going to strip the paint off of both sides while it's easy to get to, and then we'll tack it together. Got a couple things I want to try here that I've just started using, and they both have a very similar wheel. It's like a, let me get some light on this. They call it a paint and rust stripping wheel. So they make one for an angle grinder and another one for one of these drum burnishing tools. So I'm going to start with this one and see how it does. I think that one will get me into some tighter spaces, but this might move some material a little faster. Got it all tacked together, and that is starting to look like a tailgate. The next thing I want to do is trim this thing to fit because it's just a little bit tight. I want to narrow it in just a little bit. So what I'll do is get it all marked off and try to get a nice square cut on that. All right, we're squared up, trimmed to the width that we need for this tailgate. Now I want to start working on these braces. So what I wanted to do is just take it like this, mark it just a tad bit long so I can get the thing shortened and get it fit in. Right, let me show you how we're going to do our latch. I've cut up one of the latches. It used to be one of these, but I just cut it. It's going to mount right in here. It's got a ride on the tailgate. Which will put it right about there. In order to fasten this, we're already going to have this brace in here. Let's just put that in so we can see what it looks like. So that brace sits in there like that. This has to slot in here. So what I'm going to do is cut away this much of that brace, and then we're going to slide that in and weld it in so it sits flush with this surface. All right, I've welded that in, just tacked it for now. Now, the way this will work that this piece will get attached to the tailgate somewhere like that. We'll get it straight. And got our tailgate chains here. All right, I got the end pieces tacked in, just tacked. So let's fit the tailgate up and see where we're at. All right, so we're getting there. We're getting what's starting to look like a legit tailgate. All we got to do is pull these chains. I'll try to do this with one hand. Hold it down. Definitely need to adjust the chains a little bit. They're a little long. All right. Now just a whole bunch of finishing work to do. We're at day 3, and I'm all done now wire wheeling the bed here. Got all the loose rust off, and I'm ready to treat it with some rust converter. A couple other things I did on the bed that I may not have shown you is I had a couple of really bad spots, so I had to patch in some metal from one of the other beds. There's one there. There's one back in the corner. It's kind of dark. You can't quite see it. And then I just went through this morning and I looked for some of the bigger pinholes. There really wasn't too many of them, but I just zapped those, had to kind of build up weld and was kind of chasing it, but I've got those. All that's going to do is just give me something for the bed liner to grab when I get to the point of putting some bed liner in this thing. But I think it's ready to go. That's as far as we're going to take it on this episode. And I'm probably going to set this aside now and move on to some other things. But I've got it all welded up. Made some mistakes. I started thinking I was going to weld it along here, but I don't really need to do that. And these are kind of tough to do. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. But I did get it all the way welded across, both on the outside and the inside, and I've got it ground down. I still need to do a bunch of hammer dolly work because it took a little bit of a warp in there, but it's not a big deal. Just flip it around, show you the back. Yeah, it's all welded in. So a little bit of body filler will make the rest of that go away. And again, I still got some bumps here I have to hit with a hammer dolly. But let's get this thing on the box and have one more look at it. So that tailgate is done, and it really cost me nothing but my time. I made it with parts that were left over from those boxes, and I think this is going to work out really good. The other thing I did here just for this last shot is I temporarily threw the fenders and the splash guards on, so you can kind of see what we're working with here. All of these splash guards and fender are from my original box. The other one's about in the same shape. That original, that splash guard, the one I had on my original box was in tough shape. This one was a little better. This came off of the other green box that I didn't use. And I'll probably be moving on now, either next to be working on these fenders. They need a little bit of love, or the cab. I don't know. We'll think about it. Now, this is all part of a project on a 49 Willys pickup. This is how far I got, and I'm making videos on each step of the way. If you want to go back and see how I got to this point, I've got a playlist down in the comments. If you'd like to follow along on future work, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and you'll be notified as I put out new videos. And lastly, I'd like to thank you for joining me, and hopefully we'll see you next time.